Folks, today I
Yeah,
am joined. Hey, what's up, man? Folks,
I'm
today I
good. How
am
are you?
joined by
Oh, sorry, I keep on interrupting you.
Zoom,
I'm
man.
gonna be
What are you
quiet.
gonna do?
I'm gonna be quiet. You do the
And
intro.
I'm just trying to G you up. So if you would allow me, folks,
Okay.
today I am joined by Nick Hoult, an actor that you know from iconic projects such as Mad Max, X-Men: The Great, and his new film The Menu, which hits theaters on November 18th. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for
So
cheering me up like that.
Uh, I loved this film, and I have a feeling you loved your role in it because while your character isn't necessarily the villain, I'd argue he's the most hateable in the entire thing. How did you go about preparing to essentially play an asshole? Like, because you seem like you're having a lot of fun. Did you have a checklist of asshole things that you had to do or wanted to become?
Yes, yeah. I was as I have a checklist, and throughout the day, normally I just try and tick those boxes. I think. I mean, I guess the fun thing with this character is he is completely like despicable on many levels, but he's also kind of fun because he's so annoying and like is just such a suck up and buys into all the pretense of this restaurant and all the BS of it. So it's like it's fun to play that in the chaos of what was going on around, but also at the same time try and then level that out a little bit where it's like this guy is someone who's completely so uncomfortable in his skin and wants to be accepted so desperately that he's kind of essentially been indoctrinated into kind of a cult like um, world and is so desperate to be a part of it and be accepted by this chef that he makes terrible decisions and then gets ripped apart by it. So yeah, I had fun.
um, so you and I are about the same age. So if this is the case for me, I could only imagine it so for you. Rafe is one of my favorite actors of all time. And I like to, and I'm a film fan, but I'm a sports fan too. And I kind of equate the two. Like when you're going up against the best in sports, that kind of causes you to raise your game, right? So when you're going up against a legend like Rafe and a star like Anya, and you're sharing scenes one on one, how does that cause you internally to raise your game?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and I do see somewhat like acting and being on set. It is almost at times being like an athlete, I suppose, where like you prepped, you prepared, you hopefully you're ready, but then there's that time that you have to perform and deliver. And it's interesting because I mean the wonderful thing about Rafe and Anya is it's not like you're going up playing for opposing teams. You're playing for the same team, and they're both very supportive and encouraging. And whatever you throw out or they throw out, it's teamwork at that point. So, um, but it's definitely that thing like when when you play on a sports team and you go up a team that like who aren't as good, and the game ends up being close. And you're like, well, how is this close? We're a better team. And you kind of play to that level. But then
Nil
suddenly you
nil, you're
play a
saying.
team that's like so much better than you and they elevate it. So it is very much like when choosing projects, you always just want to be working with people like Rafe and Anya and all the cast of this because they're always going to elevate and demand a lot of you.
So speaking of working with the best, your next film role is with on our side of the pond, one of the biggest icons that we have in Nick Cage. So I'm curious, were there ever moments where you caught yourself like as a fan, sort of awed by the work that he's doing, not only as Nick Cage, but as Dracula of all characters? I'm just curious as what that's like. Do you ever find yourself like, whoa, I'm acting alongside Nicolas Cage in a Dracula movie? What's going on right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think it really gets more iconic than Nick Cage in as Dracula. And so it was, there were definitely moments where I'd be there and I'd be in scenes and I'd be like, this is wild. This is like prime Nick Cage, but completely as Dracula in this moment. And it's such a fun dynamic and wonderful actor to work with because he draws ideas and inspiration from so many different places and elevates the scenes again. Like, it's that thing of working with great actors. He brings such a passion and love for the craft, and also just such fun and joy to like each beat within those moments. So I'm excited for people to see what he's done.
I think I speak for all film fans when I say we cannot wait for that one. Just based on that one image of Cage alone in the purple suit, I can't wait, man. And I'm sure you're great as well. I want to move on to your co-star Anya. You and her share something very awesome in common, and that is starring in a Mad Max film. I imagine at some point you two talked about it. Did you give her any advice? I actually read the book that just came out this past year about uh, Fury Road, and it just really made me realize what an intense process that was. Did you have any advice for her going into that film? Or if not, what would it have been?
We definitely spoke about it. She was prepping to go off there and prepare, like, so she was riding bikes and learning to drift cars and doing all. And I think that was the key thing, you know, just being as prepared as possible, because those environments and that set can be intense and full on, and it's a lot. It's what makes shooting those movies incredible, is that you are really in those vehicles doing those things, and that makes the acting easy, obviously, because you're not having to pretend on a green screen. It's happening. It's visceral. But Anya's such a dedicated performer and like brilliant actress. Just that she will fight for her characters in every moment and elevate everything that's there and do what's right by the story. So I'm very excited to see how she brings Furiosa to life.
And when I bring up Mad Max, or when you guys talked about it, what's sort of the first thing that pops in your mind when you reflect on those days? I read in the book how the group of war boys, like, you guys genuinely became like a band of brothers. So where does your mind go when you think on those days?
Honestly, the first image that comes up in my brain is before we would set off, we'd do quite like long drives through the desert where the cameras would just always be rolling and shooting, and there was one of the stunt team before we'd start would run across the front of all the vehicles lined up and give the signal to start the engines. And I think that's the kind of the most incredible experience I think I've ever experienced on a set, hearing your own engine and your vehicle start up, but then all the other ones around you. It was just so loud and intense. And then the war drums would start, and it was impossible at that point not to behave and be like a war boy who was going into battle, because it was such an intense atmosphere.
So I've got to wrap here, and I just want to loop back to the film that's going to come out this week, The Menu. I was kind of impressed by sort of how much of this film is shot with you sitting just in a chair talking. I'm curious, what were the most unexpected challenges and or rewarding parts of that?
I think I mean that was the most rewarding part of that, is because it all takes place in one location in this restaurant on a set. We got to actually witness all the other conversations and scenes and performances that were going on around us, whereas normally, you know, different scenes in a movie that you're not in, you're not privy to. So to get to actually see that, and some of the incredible performances that all the cast were putting in, and that's also the difficult thing, because then you're on set throughout the day always, and you might be on camera at any moment, you don't know, so you've got to stay in it and make sure that you're kind of keeping things real.
So, but that's kind of like the film itself. You're on camera, but you just don't know it. Nick, I love to hate your character in this so much. You were a blast. The film was a blast. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to see what you got next, man.
Hey, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.